This podcast episode is made possible by wowdigital.com, your trusted partner for nonprofit and charity website and design. Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, David. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about fundraising and nonprofit strategies with Sara Hoshooley. Sara is a fundraising consultant who loves helping small teams create big plans to raise more money. As a former leader of a small charity, she knows the ups and the downs of these organizations and what they face. And she's here to talk about her project, Connect for Good. Sara, thank you so much for joining on the episode today. How's your day going so far?
Great. Thanks for having me. How's your day?
So far, so good. Been looking forward to our conversation. I know we're connected in a couple different ways, and I always love the conversations that we have. And it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here on the show with us.
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk a little bit of like basic background type stuff. How did you get started working with nonprofits and what motivated you?
Yeah, such a great question. My initial time in nonprofit actually started in 2009. I was working in the finance industry. I was doing recruitment. And in 2008, obviously there was a big recession. So by early 2009, I left that industry and decided to kind of do a bit of travel, a bit of volunteering. So I ended up in a really small town in the country of Belize in Central America. And initially my job was to do volunteer recruitment. So I was working to find volunteers from around the world to come to our organization. It was a grassroots organization supporting the local community. And so my job was really to recruit people, get them to come to the organization and do some volunteering. And while I was there, we had a truck that was delivering meals every day to people who lived in remote communities, a lot of people living with HIV and AIDS, and a lot of people that weren't actually able to leave their homes. So it was really an important thing that we were able to get this food to them. And the truck that we had broke down. And so we were doing bake sales, we were doing talent shows, we were doing all these little things, and it was raising like $5 here, $10 here. And then I kind of had this idea of the organization's been running for years, and it runs on volunteers who come to Belize, do their volunteering, and then go back home. And for us, $20 is nothing. And so I thought, what if I just ask all of our past volunteers to give $20 or $50? And so this was in 2009. So this was long before crowdfunding or peer-to-peer campaigns was really a thing. It was just kind of getting started. Anyway, so I did that and we ended up raising more than we needed for the truck. And I was like, oh, I think I like this fundraising thing. So came back to Canada and I've been fundraising ever since. So that's almost 16 years now.
That's amazing. It's an inspiring story. You had a problem, and how can we resolve this? What do we need to do to be able to bring in the funds to fix this truck? Pretty basic problem. There's probably lots of other organizations that have had issues like that, big and small, to try to do that. So interesting. All right. So you left there, you came back to Canada. Is there anything that you feel is missing in the nonprofit world?
You could take that question in so many different ways. You know, I'm sure lots of people have talked about this before, but I think the scarcity mindset of being afraid to try new things or act in such a way that, well, we have to do this because what if we, lose this funder? Or we have to do this because it's the way that we've always done things. And I think that in the nonprofit sector, we are almost always faced with a limited number of resources. And so I think in one way, it makes us all super creative to say, okay, we've got a little bit of money. We have not that much staffing and we have to do all these incredible things. The demands keep increasing and still we make things work. So I do think that there's kind of this, which I really love, like there's this scrappiness to the nonprofit sector of like, we can do this anyways, like funding got cut, lost our staffing, we can still make it happen. And we do make it happen. However, that comes at an expense of burnout, not being able to fulfill, or to service all of the needs of all the people that need our services or whatever it happens to be. So I think that's something that we're always up against. Even when times are really good, even when we've got a lot of really great staff, things are working well, there's always kind of in the back of your mind, yeah, but if we lost this funder or yeah, but if we lost this executive director, board member, whatever it happens to be, there's always a bit of a risk that's just kind of like lurking beneath the surface, even when things are good.
I love that you talked about the scarcity mindset. I'm a firm believer of the abundance mindset. There's more than enough out there for all of the organizations to fulfill whatever it is that they need, but you have to be in the right mindset for that to actually, I want to say manifest, but that's a little bit woo woo for some people. But really, I mean, if you go into a situation where like, we can handle this, we've got no problem, setting the tone for your belief system is going to make things more possible for you to actually achieve, because you've come in a positive mindset into a brainstorming session to go, how can we solve this problem, whatever the problem happens to be. I love that you talked about that. And you talk about risk. And so I want to dive into that just for a moment or two. Is I think a lot of organizations are very risk adverse. They don't want to put time and effort in something because, to your point, they've done it this way for the last 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. So why change? We've had from time to time some vendors on the show talking about their platforms, whether it's Dropbox, GiveCloud, whoever it happens to be. There are other systems out there that can help save you time and money. The issue, though, is you're so busy. To your point, how can you find time to actually look into these other options to go, this is a viable solution for us, or this isn't a viable solution for us?
Yeah, so quite a few things came up as you were saying that. One of the things I think is the reality of not having the time and space and luxury of trying new things or setting aside a bit of budget to try something new. Is that for a lot of organizations, especially the smaller ones, and I work only with small fundraising teams. Sometimes organizations are a little bit larger, but I work a lot with small ones as well. A lot of times the funding is very restricted. So if you have funding that is given to you for this particular outcome, you're going to need to not only find time, but also money to then take the time to do these other things. If you're trying something brand new or trying to do something in a different way or building an innovation, you have to have money and time for that. And that's not always easy to do. I think that's difficult. And I will also say, I think the way that we have, in a way, sort of conditioned our donors is that we talk to donors about how much goes to overhead versus how much goes directly to the nonprofit. And I think if you compare that to any business, there's no business out there that isn't doing research and development. Every business is exploring what's new, what's different, how do we do this better? And they've set aside a specific amount of their budget and their time to improve and to do things better. And we're in a space where we're not funding for that. And so because of that, we're not actually doing it. And I will say also, there is, I think, a real nervousness of, well, what if we try something new and it doesn't bring us the results that the old thing brought us? And what if we can't go back? And that's a valid reason to not want to move forward. And then I think also just in terms of the time for training, I know some organizations where they might have had the same staff person doing the same role for the last 15 years. And to take the time to get that person to go to professional development, learn a new process or product or whatever it happens to be, that's a lot of time. And it's also a lot of stress on the employee. And so I think the default sometimes is just, well, it's not perfect, but we'll just stick with what we've got.
Let's talk about the email thing for a bit, because a lot of organizations do email. So what do you think is a good frequency? What is a good customer journey? That's what we call it in the business world, right? Customer journey. You might call it a donor journey in the nonprofit world. So what do you think?
So I will say, so before I started consulting, I was an executive director at a small charity, and we had one staff person. Her job was to collect content for our newsletter, which went out once a month. So we would have a document on a shared drive, and every time something happened, we would stick it in there. And then once a month, she would send out this email that had like 12 topics and like 10 calls to action of like, give to our bottle drive and sign up for our Instagram account and come to our gala and like all of these things, right? And nobody reads that much content, right? Like when you go to your email inbox and you open something and it's a wall of text, most people either delete it or they close it and think, oh, I'll read it later. And it never gets read later. So I think that sending too much email, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We send emails that are bad and people don't take the action that we're hoping that they take. And then we say, well, email doesn't work. I'll say the organization that I work with that has the absolute best results when it comes to fundraising through email sends content once a week. It is one story. It is one call to action. If the person has donated recently, we're not asking them to donate. And if they've given recently, we are reflecting on here's, we want to tell you this story about something that your donation helped make happen. If the person's a monthly donor, we're saying, thanks to your monthly generosity, here's something that's happened recently. I would say we almost never ask for them to do more than one thing. And those emails have well above industry average open rates, click-through rates, and also donations, both from existing donors and brand new donors as well. So it's really just that one key call to action of just asking people to do one thing. And I would say also keeping it under 100 words is always ideal as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of the one action. You can have some link text in there. You can have a button. Everything goes to the one place, whatever that happens to be. And as we were talking about that, I imagine Gordon Ramsay in my head, where he goes into a restaurant
Yes.
and he's looking at the menu and there's 400 things on the menu. And he's like, how could you possibly do anything great when you've got 400 things? Make it 3, make it 5, make it a dozen, whatever. Simplify it, pare it back. It'll be easier for people to make a decision. It'll be easier for people to take action. It'll be easier on the chefs, whatever, right? So when you're thinking about an email, think about it through that lens, right? If you give somebody 3, 4, 5 different calls to action, it's a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah. And I would also say it's probably not tailored as well, right? Like most people are interacting with an organization in a particular way, right? So I'll give an example. An organization I worked with that was providing after school childcare. And I donated to them. I was on their email list. I don't have kids. And I was getting emails from them all the time about like, don't forget to sign up. Here's the deadline for childcare. I'm like, I'm a donor, so I'm happy to hear that your programs are going, but this is not for me. And so I ended up just unsubscribing because I'm like, when I open it, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I gave them my monthly gift. I wonder what they're up to. And instead I open it and it's all this stuff that makes me just feel, and I know it's because of the, segmentation and that sort of thing. But it just makes me feel like this is a waste of my time to open it because it's telling me things that are irrelevant. And we're not always going to get everything targeted, but the more that we can customize content for people, even just a quick tag, this is someone who's been part of a program before, or this is a non-program person, or this is a person who's been a volunteer. This is a person who's been donating for 10 plus years. Like there's, in every single email service provider, there's a way to tag people so that you're getting closer and closer to providing them with the customized content that they're going to be excited to read about.
Cool. So in the intro at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned Connect for Good. We haven't talked about Connect for Good really at all. So let's do that. Tell us, what is Connect for Good?
Yeah, sounds great. So it is a one-stop shop for Canadian nonprofits to find resources, tools, templates, and nonprofit serving businesses. And it has been around for about a year and a half. And the reason that I created it is that I've worked with organizations all across Canada, and I find that depending on where organizations are, either geographically, how long they've, been around, or even really how well connected their staff and their leadership are, there's such a discrepancy between the information that some organizations have versus others. And so what I was finding is I would talk to an organization in the Yukon or in the interior in BC, and the information that they had was so different than what people in Calgary, Vancouver, or Toronto would have. And so I really wanted to have a place where organizations could go to get resources and just information that is free. And I really wanted it tailored to the Canadian nonprofit sector for a couple of reasons. Number one, for anything to do with donations or financial content, things are very different in Canada than in any other country. And so what I was finding when I was working with nonprofit organizations that were small, they might look for a new CRM, or they might look for, a different product, and they'd get really excited about it. They would go down the path of starting to, implement it, and then realize, oh, they don't do tax receiving that's compliant with CRA. Or in terms of language, especially for national organizations, or of course, any organization operating in a French language majority region, everything needs to be bilingual. And unless it is a Canadian product, most things are not bilingual. And finally, payment. A lot of people don't realize that our payment systems in Canada are completely unique to any other organization. I've myself hired contractors from the US, and I'm partnering with a US consultant right now to deliver a product to a Canadian nonprofit. Our banking systems do not speak to each other. So when we talk about in Canada, we have, e-transfer, and we've got our check system, and it's different in other countries. And so I wanted to have something that, even though some of the content on Connect for Good might be coming from other countries, or it might be from companies who service different countries, everything that's on there is specifically for the Canadian nonprofit sector. And so it's kind of grown and evolved. And now that we're in 2025, I'm kind of looking at, okay, how do I evolve it even further to be as valuable as possible? Because I really want to make sure that for Canadian nonprofits, that it's a place that they can go that's easy and that they can kind of keep coming back to it. It is free for Canadian nonprofits. There's no membership or sign up or anything like that. And that's intentional. It'll always stay that way because I want people to just find what what they need to find. And I think about when I was an executive director and I needed to hire an event management company or a direct mail company. And I would just kind of go, I don't know, I guess I'll Google or I'll ask around. I had no idea. And so I thought there's got to be a better option for organizations. So yeah, so that's what I created. And I do what's called a Connect for Good conversation. They're almost weekly, Wednesdays at 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific. And each week I bring on a different nonprofit expert and we talk about whatever the topic happens to be that they are experts in. And it's sort of like an interactive conversation so people can come and ask their questions. I always learn so much and it's great to be able to bring on like lots of different areas of expertise.
Awesome. Are there any particular resources on Connect for Good that you think are like really popular that get a lot of traction?
Yeah, I would say anything to do with fundraising because I do think fundraising is one of those things. I mean, realistically, no one's saying, oh, we have too much money, like there's always more that you can be doing. Anything that's really tangible. So I have a few resources on there where it's like a click to download guide, template, that sort of thing. Those are really popular. And I think CRMs as well. People are always curious to know about CRMs, specifically ones within Canada and ones where the data is stored in Canada. For some nonprofits, that's really, really important. And there's not that many, I believe, that are storing data within Canada. So a lot of times people are coming to look for that information.
How can people get to Connect for Good?
Yeah, so it's connectforgood.ca. If you go on there, you are able to take a look at all of our past Connect for Good conversations. They're all video recorded. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. So on the weekly newsletter, you'll get up-to-date resources. So each week I highlight a few different resources that are new to Connect for Good and then also promoting the Connect for Good conversation that's coming up. So if it's something that you're interested, you can register for free. Yeah, so connectforgood.ca, just go on there and then you can sign up for our weekly newsletter.
So, incoming bad pun alert. So, Sarah, you're connected pretty well with a lot of organizations and companies and software platforms and things like that they've got in the resource directory. Where do you think small or startup nonprofits should start when they're looking to grow?
Great question. So in terms of if they're looking to grow their fundraising or they're looking to just get more information or
Let's go with fundraising. They need more money because they want to expand. They need a second employee in the nonprofit kind of thing.
yeah, I think on Connect for Good, there's a lot of different directions that people could kind of head in. All of the content is categorized by topic areas. There is a whole section on fundraising that includes a lot of different things. So, for example, one of the grants writing consultants who's on there, she actually publishes a monthly list of all of the upcoming grants in Canada. She lists it by province and also the federal ones. So that would be one to look for myself. I also do fundraising plans for small fundraising teams. So that's listed on there for organizations that really want to take a holistic look of what's working, what's not. And then I put together a 12-month comprehensive plan for them. As well, if they're looking for someone to implement the plan for them, I find them an experienced fundraiser to do that as well. Yeah, I would say there's lots of different content on there. And I think what's nice about it is that we also have on all of the resources, we have a link to connect with the person who's actually posted it. So if somebody sees something and they think, well, that's interesting, but I don't really get it, there's always something that you can do to get a little bit more information.
Amazing. Sarah, fantastic thoughts that you've had. And I like to put all my guests on edge, like right at the end of the episode. If you were to issue a challenge to people listening to this episode or watching it, we've got a YouTube channel. For anybody that hasn't checked it out, go check it out. Subscribe, please. That'll be awesome. It'll help us spread the word about everything that we're doing with the podcast. So, what challenge would you issue to anybody to do within the next 1 to 2 days after checking out this episode?
So I would put a challenge out to small fundraising teams. I love doing this exercise because it gets people to think in an abundance mindset. And that is, I want you to think about or have this discussion with your team as a quick discussion. If $100,000 landed in our laps tomorrow or $1 million, depending on the size of your organization, what would we do with it? And I think it's so exciting to get people to start thinking about that because it does unlock this idea of, do we need to grow a program? Do we need to hire more staff? Do we need to better invest in the people that we have? And yes, it can be a little bit disappointing to have all these beautiful dreams and then, potentially they don't come true, but it gets you thinking forward. And I will also say for one of the small organizations that I work with, she actually met with a major donor, didn't know what direction the conversation was going to head in. She knew the person had capacity to give a lot of money. And they actually said to her, I don't know the amount that they said, but it was, if you had X number of thousands of dollars, what would you do with it? And she was ready to answer that question because we had done this exercise before. And she said, we haven't worked out the details, but this is what we would do with, $300,000, which is 50% of their budget. And so just having that in the back of her mind allowed it to be, instead of, let me go back to my team and let me figure it out. It was just like, boom, this is what we would do. And so it really puts you in a different position when you hopefully get into those conversations. So yeah, that would be my challenge. Think about what you would do with a huge windfall at your organization.
Love that idea. I'm going to take that to some of the organizations that we work with as well and have some conversations, or at least kind of plant the seed for them to have those conversations internally. That's awesome, Sara. So amazing insights around fundraising strategies. We talked a little bit about email marketing and stuff, and obviously the Connect for Good system that you've put together. I hope the people that have been listening to this episode walk away with at least one thing that they're going to do and implement and look into, and I hope that they check out connectforgood.ca. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
Yeah, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so feel free to message me there, or connectforgood.ca. I'm there as well. Always love to hear from people, so please do get in touch.
Awesome. Thanks again so much for joining in, Sara. It's been great having you here on the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. Everybody listening, if you want any of the links or resources, the link to Sara's LinkedIn profile, Connect for Good, etc., please visit our podcast page at nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com. Click on this episode for all the details. Go and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting platform, YouTube, whatever it happens to be. Leave a comment on one of the episodes as well. That's going to help us rank higher and we'll spread the word even more. And until next time, keep on being successful.